And is it, even though this isn't a proper episode, it'll still trigger the automatic tweet, right?
I just sent a
Maybe.
manual tweet. That's the kind of.
Oh, okay.
All right.
There it is.
Let's just check. 3 people are watching now. There. Too many windows.
There, I have retweeted and lowered expectations appropriately.
Excellent. That's what we like to do here at the Dog and Pony Show on Tony Bill's Lego streams. The most casual, most informal of our various. This is not even a podcast. This will not be edited. This is just.
No, oh God, no.
I was given a large set of Legos, and I felt like, oh, maybe I'll share my building of a large set of Legos with the internet. And maybe sometimes people will join me, and we'll chat about things. People love things, right?
I think so.
Yeah,
I feel like my camera is really fuzzy.
it does. It's got a little bit of a, I don't know, kind of a. I mean, there's like a warm glow to it, but it's a little
it's not me.
Yeah. You're not experiencing a warm glow.
No. I mean, I have HD checked, and I don't have like I don't even have the touch up my appearance. So you're getting my actual appearance.
This is
sorry.
raw Erica. Uncut.
Yeah, maybe I need adjust for low light, because there's like every light is on in this room and it's still not enough. I don't know. Maybe that's a little better. I just think the camera on my laptop is not great, which is fine because I don't use it for podcasting very often or at all.
Yeah. Just check.
I don't think
YouTube stuff.
I'm pretty sure I've never actually used this to record a podcast.
Oh. Because it's a complete. Yeah. This is you joining us from your living room instead of from your traditional podcast cave.
Yep. This is my living room. This is the Lazy Doctor Who couch. This is where we record Lazy Doctor Who. Wow. Right here, not on this computer. And this is Brickley.
What? Brickley is a bear?
He is a bear. He's also a goalie. He is basically a shill for the Brick, which is that he has a bee on his foot because the Brick is our local furniture store where this couch came from, actually. But he came from an Oilers game. It was for charity for a local children's hospital, I believe. He's here. Who else do we have? We also have Baby Yoda.
Nice.
One of our many babies, Yoda. This is the cutest.
Yeah.
This is the cutest one. There's a giant like Squishmallow one over there, and then there's a tiny plastic one in the podcast studio, and I have one on my desk at work.
So you try to have like one per room so that you're never
at least.
You don't want to be more than like 15 feet from a baby
Yoda.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. Stephen has some Baby Yoda socks. We have 2 Baby Yoda coffee mugs. There's my box that has all my jigsaw puzzles in it, has a Baby Yoda on it, and we have a Baby Yoda calendar, and that's not to mention the Baby Yoda Lego figs that are around
everywhere.
There's at least 2
I imagine. Yeah.
Yep. And this is a moose whose name I forget all the time, but I think it might be Mortimer. I'm not sure.
What is Mortimer representing on his shirt there?
This is the Canadian national team for hockey.
Oh,
so
okay. That means it's not a shirt; it's a sweater.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
He was.
See, I know something about sports people.
I'm actually really impressed. Most people say jersey, which is also correct, but sweater is more old school.
I think I only know that because I think that was like a key plot point in Letterkenny. I think is why I know that. So, which is my main vector for knowing things about both hockey and Canada. So,
I also have Valentine Baxter Bear, who is a dog.
Okay. Yep. I mean, I'm not going to tell you how to name your dogs or your bears, but okay.
We saw him in the grocery.
there could be some issues at some point.
We saw him at the grocery store at Valentine's Day. They had this huge thing of cute little adorable critters. And the tag for every single one of them said Valentine Bear. And I was like, but he's not a bear. So it's his last name.
Got it.
Yes.
It's a family name.
So so it's Valentine Bear is his name, and we decided Baxter was his middle name. So it's Valentine Baxter Bear, the dog.
The dog. Got it.
Yep. All of our gang of friends have lots of fun naming stories. I can't remember. Oh God, this is Reginald T. Pup. I think I can't remember. He came from London. We bought him at a store. Yeah, we saw some fuzzy dogs in the window as we were passing. And we were like, we have to go in and look at those. And it was only like, I think he was 5 pounds. Which he
looks like he's got kind of a corduroy texture, possibly.
Yeah, it's microfiber, but it is more of a corduroy, so it's super super soft. But he looks classier.
A classy dog. For your living room. That's important, you know.
Yes, it is. Oh, and this is what is it? Parka is the name of this little beaver.
There's something about the hat that makes Parka the beaver seem like slightly off-brand Paddington Bear.
Yeah, it's because Parka is the mascot for the Canadian national parks.
Oh, okay, I get it. Parka.
Yeah,
because is Parka wearing a parka?
No,
sort of.
No, Parka is wearing a very
vest.
light vest.
Yeah.
Yep. But we got this on the day that I took my my citizenship oath, because we went to a national park because I wanted to do something Canadian.
Okay, you were not required on your citizenship day to do
No. I just said, what's the most Canadian thing I could do today? And I was like, let's visit a national park that I'd been meaning to go to for like the entire 8 years I'd lived here and hadn't done yet. So we finally got that done. And then I spent
a
crap ton
Edmonton, or did you?
Yeah, it's only like a 45-minute drive out of town. Okay. Yep. I mean, we've driven through it, but that doesn't count. So yeah, I spent a lot of money in the gift shop, and Parka is one of many things that came home with me.
Well, those were, contributions to your new Canadianness.
Yep. That's basically all I can reach from here. Although you can see
it's better than I
Shelf O awards up above.
Wow.
Which is a lot of getting ridiculous. And there are 2 more Hugo Awards in the mail right now on the way.
Wow.
Yep.
To be an award-winning podcaster.
I mean, I only kind of won for the podcast, but I'm counting it.
Yeah. So, Erica, speaking of travel and whatnot, you just left Canada and returned. Congratulations.
I did. They let me back in with I had to fill out some extra forms because I forgot to attach my new Canadian passport to my Nexus card. It still had my permanent resident card, which no longer exists because I literally cut it up on Zoom in front of a judge. So they're very specific about that. Everybody lift up your card. I need to see you cutting it. I'm like, okay.
But you made it here. So this was for Gallifrey 1. Is that the name of the podcast, or is that the name of the planet?
It's the name. Gallifrey is the name of the planet. Gallifrey 1 is the name of the Los Angeles convention that is the biggest fan-run Doctor Who convention in the world.
Is there any other Gallifrey with a number after it convention, or were they just future-proofing in case they wanted to spin off?
I think they were just future-proofing.
Okay.
I mean,
did not know
it is possible.
One, so.
My knowledge of the show is not nearly as deep as Steven's. There may be a specific like Gallifrey 1 call sign or something in the show that they named it after, and I'm sure I could go to the website and look it up, but I'm not going to.
I didn't know it was the biggest one. I know it was a big deal among you and other Doctor Who nerds. But it seemed like everyone who I know who is even vaguely Doctor Who oriented was in Los Angeles for the weekend.
People say it's like Doctor Who, like the whole Doctor Who fandom just sort of pauses for the weekend because so many people are at the convention. This is ridiculous because, like I said, it's a fan-run convention. It was just started by Doctor Who fans in the LA area, as a convention. Like it actually started like the last year that classic Doctor Who was even on the air. And so most of its early days, there was no Doctor Who happening. They were just still coming together to celebrate it. And because it's gotten so big, it's kind of funny after it happens every year, people in the UK complain. They're like, Gallifrey One should be here. Like, yeah,
hey
sure.
man, start your own fan run
Exactly.
Doctor Who convention. What's stopping you?
As one of my friends said, yeah, and I think Chicago TARDIS should be in New York, and Long Island Who should be in Denver, and it's very silly. So I think maybe it's just gotten so big, and I mean, the Sean Lyon, who's the guy who does the programming and who kind of runs the convention, he's been doing it the entire time, like all 34 years or something. And he's just built these really good relationships with the actors and the production team and the directors and writers and stuff. So it spreads by word of mouth. People say, hey, this was a great convention, you should go. So he keeps getting really big guests. So I think maybe some people don't recognize that it's not an official thing.
And I can imagine, I know nothing about running conventions or conferences or large events, but my perception is not all of them are very well run out there.
Oh God, that's so true.
Yeah. My perception is that, running them, and many of them are run for profit, and that is, challenging, right? And there are places that, can't make their money back, or aren't profitable to run. And that, being, I assume if they're a fan run, they're not for profit, or at least they don't have to make the same kind of giant profit amounts that other organizations would need.
I think most of them are not for profit. I know for sure Galley is.
Yeah. And then just like, being competent is a highly in demand service, and especially doing something year after year, and people being able to rely on you, whether that's like just knowing that you will pay your bills or that you'll show up, counts for a lot. I feel like in life. So yeah, I'm building, I think this is a water wheel for my castle right now. So
yeah, how is the build going?
It is good. It's going to take me, people have noticed that it's like, Tony, you're not making very much progress. I think I'm on build bag 9 right now, and I think there's like 20 or 30 bags in there, so I got a ways to go. But I'm taking it slow and steady, like a tortoise. And I enjoy it. It's fun building something castle oriented. I like the castle theme a lot. So I do it bit by bit. And I am only ever doing it when I am streaming and talking to people. And, multitasking is tricky to do. So I feel like I'd be doing it a lot faster if I was doing it by myself. But then that would be kind of, be quiet and lonely. And that has downsides to it, too. So, yeah. I assume
not everybody feels that way about Lego. I can tell you.
So Steven has this set, and I'm guessing he built it in like one sitting or
no,
a weekend.
He spread it out over a number of days. That number might have been 2. I'm not sure.
Okay. I will say there is the powerful effect that I have of, when I go to the store and I see another Lego set that I am interested in. It's like, I literally cannot, I don't know if this logic applies to your household, but I am applying the logic that I cannot purchase more Legos while I have an unbuilt Lego set.
Well, I mean, that's not technically a rule here, because
it's a guideline.
Yeah, but it's like more like generally, if there's Lego in the house, it's going to get built. So that's like, it's just going to get built fairly soon, so it doesn't sit around. Although every year Steven does every year they do a new modular set, so they have like all these buildings that sort of fit together,
the like town area stuff. And those are beautiful. I don't super care for town as a theme, but those are some amazing looking sets with their shops and houses and stuff.
Yep.
Do you have all of this?
No, because Steven didn't start buying them until years after they started coming out. And for his birthday, I did look into getting him like some of the early ones.
And like the very fortune, because they're like
the very first one, I think was like $2,500 US. Yeah. So So I think one of the things he's going to do eventually is see if he can track down just the building instructions,
Mm,
which will give a list of all of the pieces, and then just buying the pieces themselves, which will be
is
cheaper probably than the entire thing with
that's
the box and the instructions.
that's kind of wild.
Yeah. So he will go backwards and eventually complete the set, but that happens every year. I think it usually goes on sale like on New Year's Day. So he will buy that and then he puts it together on his birthday, which is February 3rd. So
Oh, that's a nice
that will sit
tradition.
unbuilt, for a month or so
Hmm.
every year. But
I
other than
I
that,
I think I
mhm.
saw him tweeting or other somewhere documenting his work on it, and this year it was like a jazz club.
Yes, it's
It
so
looked very
cool.
cool.
Yeah. The level of detail is unbelievably good. It's just adorable. So I support his buying those just because I like to see them, but we are eventually going to run out of shelf space and I don't know what we're going to do.
I just went through a my weekend project. This was not very much fun. I was moving a bunch of stuff around, and the Billy bookcase behind me, which is this podcast not brought to you by IKEA, but everything in my house brought to me by IKEA.
Same.
Uh, was super. I had, it's full of graphic novels, and then there was above at the top of the shelf where it's just flat. I had probably put way too many graphic novels, and I was like shifting the bookcase, and the whole thing went like parallelogram. Uh, yeah, and it was like, this is no longer going to. So we took everything off of it. And dusted it, which was good because it super needed that.
Mhm.
And then uh reassembled the bookcase with new nails and new glue and all that stuff. But I in doing that, it was like this. I took that as an opportunity to weed out my graphic novel collection, and I'm gonna give away or rehome some of that stuff because it's like, don't yeah, shelf space is a finite resource, and I'm running out of that. So um yeah, gonna figure out if I skipped a step here.
Yeah. Yeah, we have one friend who likes Lego but doesn't. I don't know if he doesn't want it in his house, if his wife doesn't particularly want it, if they don't have room, what the deal is. He also collects books, so I know that he's got a lot of space taken up by just paperbacks and stuff. And one year, speaking of Gallifrey One, he comes to the convention every year. He gave Stephen the Boba Fett ship model, the
Hmm.
like the big one, and just said, "Here, technically I own it, but you can just, babysit it for an undisclosed amount of eternity." So Stephen got to bring it home and like put it together, and
Hmm.
have the fun of doing that. And now it sits over with all the rest of the Star Wars ships, which is nice. Except that then he messaged Stephen before the convention and was like, "So I've got this Imperial Star Destroyer."
Oh gosh. This
Like,
is
no.
a dangerous thing where it's like they don't they do they
Mhm.
have Legos at this point, or are they like, you know
Uh-huh.
yeah,
And Stephen was like, "Yeah, we don't have room for that. Don't
yeah.
do it." And
Oh,
he was he was going to give it away to somebody, like to just give it away. Um,
mhm.
and then Stephen was like, "No." And I was like, "Okay, fine." So instead, he recognizes that it's probably just going to sit on one of our shelves unbuilt for a good
Mhm.
long time because we just don't have any place to put that. But at some point, maybe it will get put together. And I ran into him in the lobby when Stephen wasn't around, and he's like, "I'm so sorry about the Lego." And I was like, "Barsky, you son of a bitch." But hi, Dan.
Legos.
Dan
I'm,
Morin, how's
compl-
it
I'm
going?
complaining about the fact that one of our friends has not given custody of the Imperial Star Destroyer Lego set to Stephen. We
Oh
already have
no.
we already have Boba Fett's ship that technically belongs to him. It's sitting over there.
Yeah, this is
And
a new strategy I'm learning about, Dan. If you don't have space in your
You
house
build
for
them.
something, you just
Mhm.
give things to other people and claim that it's yours. I didn't know you could do this.
Tony, I've
Uh,
got a lot of Legos that need storing.
uh,
Also, some books. About 2 boxes of DVDs.
yeah,
Some
I was
CDs.
Dan. I did, it was actually really nice weather in Boston this weekend, Erica, which I think helped inspire me to think of this as like a spring clean out. Yeah, I was telling Erica, Dan, I got rid of or am in the have identified, put them into a box to get rid of a large chunk of graphic novels. But as I was doing that large chunk of graphic novels, I looked at some, DVDs and older video games that have not been touched in a long time, and I was like, "You're next. I don't need you anymore." You know.
I have a bunch of boxes of that stuff from when we moved, and I think honestly the answer is just give it the
You're in a house now. You don't have to get rid of. You have tons of space. You
oh
can
my
keep all
god,
that forever.
it quickly fills
Fills up
up.
with junk.
Oh man, the amount of stuff you have expands to fit the amount of space available,
That's
and
Yeah.
then some.
Mhm.
How's the
That's
so true.
how's the castle progressing?
The castle is going good, Dan. I think I started the next building last time, which it's lovely. It's got a water wheel.
Ooh. Oh,
Uh,
that's
and
nice.
a couple minifigures that I've assembled. I'm building this. There's a little, and it's activated by the wheel. There's a little I don't know what you call this. It's the things that you use to
A
mill grain.
a millstone.
Yeah. And I'm building this thing right now, which I think is like a little nest for a bird. So
I was trying to see that little minifig there with the cup. Is that a? It looks like a drow from here.
they do have. I think it's a lady.
Okay.
A bit of a page boy kind of haircut.
Okay.
And a goblet.
Very pale.
Yeah. So
The
well,
hair,
you know.
not the
Oh
yellow
yeah,
skin.
yeah. No, they've got a healthy yellow glow to them.
Healthy
So-
yellow sheen.
Yeah.
Jaundiced, as all Lego minifigs are.
Yeah. So
Oh, hi, Mom. My mom's watching.
hi, Erica's mom.
I-
Dan, we were discussing you and Erica both attended conventions on this weekend,
That's
though
true.
not the same.
Not the same.
wanna
Opposite sides.
Opposite sides of the world. Would you like to regale us with tales of your convention
Tales.
experience? Or
Sure. I mean, I went to the BosCon science fiction convention, which I attend every year because it's the convention in my backyard. Not
Yep.
literally, that would be weird, but in the Boston.
I would
Seaport
come to a
District.
convention in your backyard.
That's just a party, Erica. You're invited anytime.
Oh,
I've been to at least one of those.
We have a swing set.
Yeah.
Yeah, go nuts.
Ooh, I'm sold.
Yeah, that was fun. I was on a couple panels, including one talking about Star Trek with Frank Wu, who, if you don't know, is a writer and illustrator. And I was on a panel about Andor with Brianna Wu. So I
Collect
got
all the
both
woos.
Woos, and I got to
Yeah.
do Star Wars and Star Trek talk, which was pretty great. So that was a lot of fun. We had a good time in both of those panels. A lot of energized people talking about things they love. Went through all the modern Star Trek series, and everybody. Frank is very excitable, if you don't know Frank, and decided that his plan for even though he had learned later he was not the moderator of the panel, but he got so into it, the moderator was like, Frank, do you want to moderate? And he's like, yeah. He brought a projector, he brought AV stuff. He decided the best way to do this was each of us would take there were 5 panelists and 5 modern Star Trek shows. So each one would pick one and defend to the death why it is the best of the new Star Trek shows. And then he bought us all shirts for the shows.
Yep, that sounds like Frank. That's amazing.
So I got to defend Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which I believe I did by holding up my iPad with a picture of Anson Mount and said, Captain Pike's hair. I rest my case.
Well done, Dan. Well done.
Um,
and they say you're not a serious media pundit.
that was a lot of fun. And I also got to talk about all the other shows, all the other Star Trek shows that I like. That panel made me watch Star Trek Prodigy, which I enjoyed quite a bit.
Yeah. Was that the one new Star Trek you hadn't seen?
I'm actually behind on Discovery. I've not seen the most recent
Okay.
season, but
That's fair.
and
We
I
forgive
have
you.
not seen not obviously, but I have not seen the new season of Picard yet.
Yes.
But everything else I'm up to date on. So yeah.
When you said there are 5 new Star Treks, I was like, that can't be right. And then I started
It's
counting
true.
them. I was like, what?
Correct.
What
I
a
know.
world we live
This
in.
is the world we live in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And,
It's pretty-
and nobody's
pretty
like,
good
oh, there's
there.
too much Star Trek, but people are like, oh, there's too much Star Wars. It's like, no, there's never enough.
I don't know.
I do a
don't-
whole
yeah.
podcast
Who are those
about
people,
Star Wars.
Dan?
I
don't
need the
know them.
content.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
I've never met those people, Dan. They're not welcome in my house.
I don't know. That's
Yeah.
not. That's not cool. That's not
Yeah.
cool.
Dan, it is. I do have and Erica, I know. I don't know if this overlaps for you with Doctor Who things. The thing where it's hard for me not to think of panel discussions at cons, especially fan ones, as basically unreleased podcasts.
That's what they are.
Okay, that's
Pretty
so
much.
It's okay. To
I got
think of
much
them that
better
way.
at panels when I
Mhm.
realized they were basically podcasts, and I already do that all the time,
Gotcha.
Mhm.
So okay.
just
Yep.
with a live audience,
Though
which
I
is actually
know-
kind of great.
At Gallifrey, some of the panels are podcasts, correct, Erica?
Yeah, the opening show of the convention is basically an episode of Radio Free Skaro. So they
Gotcha.
have, like a couch and the hosts, and they just bring out, guests. It's sort of like a late night talk show where this year they had 4 sets of guests in an hour, I think it
Wow,
was.
that's a lot, I guess.
Yeah. It was just like they were in and out real fast, but they had like the 6th Doctor and oh God, it was a lifetime ago because it was last Friday.
Yeah, no,
But
lots
but
happens since then.
yes, yep, a director and production designer and a couple of actors, like creature actors. It was just like in and out, in and out. So like 12-minute conversations and then boom, and that gets recorded, but nothing else at the convention that's officially happening at the convention is recorded because it's not allowed. It's specifically
Got
in
it.
the rules that so unless you get special dispensation from the con team to record something, like we would like to do an episode of our podcast at the convention, which most of the time the answer is going to be no, because the convention has an official podcast. So mhm.
Well,
That
we
makes
have like
sense.
when I did a few live Inconceivables at Emerald City Comic Con, which we did get the audio for, which was nice because you could like that was, I mean, it was a pain because they were not set up to like, they're like, you want 7 different tracks. Like, bear with me here.
They're like, get out of here.
Yeah, need it, need it.
Mhm.
Yeah, they were not set up for necessarily doing all that. So I'd have people in a couple cases sharing mics and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's very different. Depends on the type of con, right? Like,
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, if it's at like the big media conventions, sometimes it's easier. Steven he's done interviews of Doctor Who, like Doctors and Companions and stuff at like Edmonton and Calgary big time conventions, and he'll just ask, hey, can I take the sound from the board and use this as a podcast? And they're like, yeah, sure, go ahead. But if it's a smaller thing where there's actually an official podcast of the convention, then the convention itself kind of doesn't want to take away from,
Sure.
in this case,
Well, and
Radio
they,
Free Skaro.
they want you to, they want you to get the official one. They probably would
Yep.
like that you
Mhm.
attend the convention. I guess it's always that tricky thing of what
Mhm.
what is competing with us versus what is promoting.
Yeah, exactly.
things we do.
And it's a convention that since the beginning has always really been about being there in person. So it's not
Mhm.
like the kind where they'd live stream
Mhm.
rooms or anything. It's it's not exactly what happens at Galley stays at Galley, but it's
Oh,
it's
no,
sort
is
of
it that?
like,
it's
No.
interesting too because I think Doctor Who has, for whatever reason, despite its longevity, has managed to maintain its status as something that feels a little more still fan driven. Like I'm
Mhm.
comparing to like
Mhm.
I've been to Star Wars Celebration a number of times. That is highly commercialized. It is run by basically the
Mhm.
same people who run a lot of Comic Cons, and it's officially sanctioned by Disney.
Mhm.
So it has much more of a, corporate presence to it, and they're very slick at how they do it, right? Because they want to protect their brand and they want to have a really big, like, they'll bring in all the actors and they'll do little talk shows and stuff and panels and all of that, but it's a little bit more corporate. I assume some of that's just a function of money,
Mhm.
right? Like I assume there's way more money in
Yep.
Star Wars than there is in Doctor Who, but it's cool that Doctor Who has maintained sort of that grassrootsy feel to
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difference. Like, what is your aim? Is it to make money, or as Tony and I were saying earlier, is it a nonprofit thing and the goal is to have fun for the fans? There have been a couple of official BBC Doctor Who conventions in the UK, and they have been wildly expensive, much shorter, and like basically the same thing every day. So like you can
Mm.
go on Saturday or Sunday and it's exactly the same
Weird.
stuff. Yeah. And like, it's like 100 or 200 pounds or something like that just for a ticket. I didn't go to these, but I talked to some people who did, and they were like, it was not at all the same thing as a fan
Mm.
convention. There were no, panels or anything like that. It was just big interviews and probably I think autographs and photos and stuff, which is, I mean, and that's where the stars make their money. And then that
Sure,
happens
yeah.
that happens at Gallifrey one as well, but it's also amongst all of the other stuff happening. So it's and as I told Tony, Galley started in 1989, which was the last year the classic series was on. So much of the history of the convention was when there was no Doctor Who airing.
Yeah, right.
They were just celebrating the books and the comics and like the stuff that was happening off screen and the stuff that had gone before. So it was very, very fan driven. And a number of the people who later went on to run the show had been going to the convention.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, like something like BossCon, which is, I mean, like it's a fan run con. It's been around this year, I believe, was the 60th. So like it's been around for a
Nice.
very long time. And it's, you know, there's a large focus on certainly books. I think probably over more than anything else in terms of like there are lots of writers who show up. There's also lots of artists. There's a big art presence as well. But there's a decent selection of professional writers and things like that. So that's one of the things that makes it worthwhile for me to go, is like being able to see people who are other professional writers and, you know, interact with them and see my agent and all that stuff. So, you know, it's kind of an opportunity. But those are the kind of things like, I know, Worldcon, for example, is traditionally kind of takes over one of these cons basically every year. But it rotates through and goes to different places, so that makes it fun to do as well. Sometimes you're in Spokane.
Yep.
Sometimes
and
you're
the
in
world's
Washington,
on fire.
DC.
Yep. Yeah, it was a good time, and probably the most exciting thing. Besides, you know, I love to watch Stephen do interviews on stage, so Chris Chibnall, the showrunner, the now outgoing showrunner of Doctor Who, was one of the two big guests. It was Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall were like the two, you know, top tier gets. And my God, Chris Chibnall did everything. He was on panels in like the small rooms. He was so excited. He just wanted to talk about Doctor Who. He is such a fan. It was amazing. I even got to meet him very briefly, but Stephen did a live commentary. They also do live commentaries where they'll play the episode with subtitles and have a moderator and some of the people who were, in this case, it was Chris Chibnall, Jamie Magnus Stone, who directed the episode. It was Jodie's last episode. And the actors who played Tegan and Ace, who were the classic companions who came back for that episode, and the Daft Schirmer, the production designer, all sitting there with Stephen at a couch and talking about it. So after it was done, usually I go out the side door and just wait for Stephen to come around, because the stars will go through these back corridors to get to the green room. So when I came out, Stephen was standing there talking to Chris Chibnall, and I think Janet Fielding, who played Tegan, was still there chatting for a while, and then Sean Lyon, who runs the convention. Just, you know, and I was not going to butt in because that would be really weird, and I'm Midwestern. So I just sort of you know, hunkered down like a ways away, just leaning against the wall, just looking at my phone, expecting everybody to go off through the back hallways and Stephen to walk past, and then we just, you know, go wherever. But then like I looked up, and then no, everybody else had gone the other way, and here's Stephen and Chris Chibnall just trotting down the hallway, chatting away. And I was just like, oh, okay. So Stephen came over and he's like, oh, and waiting here patiently, this is my wife Erica Ensign of the Verity podcast. And Chris Chibnall was like, oh, I've heard such good things about your podcast, I know of it. And I was like, wow, okay. That was very exciting. And somehow it came up that Stephen and I had gotten married at Galley exactly 10 years ago that weekend, because this was our 10-year anniversary weekend, and he was just so interested in everything that we had to say. It was just so nice. And Stephen had asked him if he was interested in being a guest on Radio Free Skaro, like doing an interview. I don't even know if Chris Chibnall has done like a sit down audio or even video or even maybe even print interview, like a more of a long form thing. And he said yes. And Stephen was like, I know you have a panel at noon tomorrow, so maybe like 11:30 I could, you know, just come and find you. And he's like, well, how much time do you want? Maybe more. And Steve's like, 11:15, 11. And he's like, how about 10:30?
Wow.
Yes.
Well, I mean, he's newly unemployed, right? So he's got all the
that's
time
true.
to spend.
So
I mean, tell me about it. If I
had-
could just sit around and talk about Star Wars all day, I would probably do that.
That's
So,
true.
you know,
Yep.
Dan, I'm not convinced that's not what you do.
I'm on deadline.
But I had to get up early on the Saturday morning of Galley so that I could tidy our room and like make the bed and
Mhm.
make sure everything is lined up, because Stephen has this huge podcast setup and he didn't know for sure if Chris Stibnall would be like, yeah, sure, I'll come to your hotel room for an interview. But it was Stephen and his co-host Warren and Chris Chibnall, so it was like,
I know.
slightly less creepy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got up and I skedaddled so that Stephen could do the interview, and I just finished listening to it tonight, and it was wonderful. And Stephen got him to talk about maybe my favorite Chris Chibnall show, which is Born and Bred, which nobody else has ever heard of. It was his very first show. It was in like the early 2000s, 2001, 2002, and it's basically a period show set in like the 1950s about this adorable, strange little town in the West Country where there are trains and everybody is a little bit quirky and weird, and it's just twee as hell and super sweet, and I love it. So Stephen opened the interview with that, and he was like, wow, I did not expect questions
No
about
one has
Born and
ever
Bred.
asked me about this. Yeah.
No.
Nice.
But I got to hear all about the genesis of Born and Bred, so I was very excited.
Nice. That's pretty cool.
Yep. It's not available for it's not on the podcast feed yet, so like if you
But it
go
will
scrambling
be.
for yeah, it's available for patrons if you want to become a patron.
Oh, put the plug in.
Very well.
Patreon.com/Radio Free Scaro. There you go.
Nicely done.
Mhm.
It's a good time. It's a good time to monetize.
Yeah. Yeah, flights to Galley ain't cheap.
That is one reason I go to a con that is in Boston, because
take
it's
this-
considerably
You can drive
cheaper.
to, Dan, or you take the
I
T?
took the T one day, although the T had a bunch of delays, so I drove on Sunday because I only had to be in and out.
Mm.
And it's like a 20-minute drive for me, so that's not bad at all. I did have to put
You
parking,
probably
which is ridiculous.
have a lot more chances at conventions that you can get to via car or
You-
train than I do.
That's probably true, although you would be surprised. I think there are probably some that I don't know about or haven't attended, but that's really the only one within close distance that I attend on a regular
What is
basis
your definition of close distance though? Because mine is like
that
3
I
hours.
don't fly to,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Like there are other cons in Boston, but there are ones that like some of the more popular ones I don't go to or I haven't been to. Like there's one called ReaderCon that's very popular, but I've never been because it's always my anniversary weekend. And I was not married at that conference, so it's not a
Oh,
good
okay.
anniversary celebration.
There
And
may
there's,
be
like, a
some
Boston-
competing values here for what is a drivable distance. Also, Dan,
yeah.
just
Well, no,
I say
I
this,
totally understand.
you
that
know,
there's-
by
I could
Midwestern
drive to more
standards,
things. I simply
you know,
don't.
by Midwestern standards, that there's several
Mhm.
states away is still drivable, whereas by Boston standards, the next state away is a question mark, even though you can almost see the next state from
Yeah, I mean,
several
drivable is a
places.
it's a different issue here. It
Yeah.
probably takes us as long to get to a place, but it's just because of traffic.
Yep.
But also people in New England are less inclined to drive, I think, to a thing, or at least it's that becomes a significant endeavor, whereas people from the Midwest, and I assume that these values could transfer all the way up to Edmonton, just know
Mhm.
that everything is several hours away, and that's just
I
Yes. Yeah.
I
It's like,
once-
oh, you want to come visit? And it's like Calgary. Like, yeah, sure, we'll drive down. It's 3 hours, but that's fine.
what
I
are we
once
gonna
drove
do?
to every New England state in a day.
Yeah,
It's possible. Takes
It's-
a long
Dan,
takes
it's
long to
very-
think.
it's very
Wow.
possible. It's
It's
not that
actually-
hard.
it's
Did
actually-
you
no, it
leave the
takes
house
about-
before noon?
It took us about 17 hours, I think.
Really that far?
Oh, wow.
Well, you got to get to Maine. Maine is a pain.
Maine
'cause
is a little-
It's a
that
it's a
is
couple
Maine is
hours
pain.
up there.
the state
That's
motto.
the motto.
Yes.
Maine is a pain.
Yeah.
And then you got to go across and you got to go
Yeah.
down and you got to come back across. So it's like you could probably do it faster if you were optimizing just for like, I just want to hit all the states and let's out there. But like, it's stuff
You
for
also,
lunch
like,
and stuff like that.
Went into each state and had like a thing, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to stop at least. Anyone can just drive through all the states. That's easy.
I will just something just popped up in the chat. JPS, is this the Giant Rivendell set? It is not. I don't think the Giant Rivendell set is out. This is the
it's not.
Lion Knight's Castle, which is also very big. Maybe we don't have the money to afford Steven to have a knowledgeable Lego representation here to tell you how much fancier Rivendell is and how many more pieces and how many more
He is currently
dollars it
working.
is.
he's currently working an Oilers game where he's getting
Mm.
paid to do replay for the big screen. I don't think we can compete with how much. Like, I'm not saying the Oilers Entertainment Group pays all that well, but
Mhm.
it's better than we can handle.
Yeah, the budget for this is $0. And a gift, a generous gift from the Incomparable Foundation in Legos that I'm working on right now. So this is part of a very giant castle that looks something like that, or that's like one
Like,
side of it.
Where
Yeah.
is it?
Uh,
I could have actually like brought it over to show you.
oh, that
but
would be
it's no
very
longer.
Julia Child. Like here is the assembled.
It's no longer on the floor. It is now on a shelf, but it's like the
Oh,
bottom
fancy.
shelf and it's sort of tucked in.
Mhm.
So
If we
not
want to level
easy
up, this should have been each of us building a different Lego set at the same
Oh.
time. I'm
I
sure
do
competitive
have
Lego
the-
building is a thing.
I do have the A-frame cabin, but Steven would be mad at
Oh.
me if I started building it without him.
I saw a picture of that on like showed up
looks
on my
nice.
Instagram or something. It does look nice. I haven't bought a
It's-
Lego
yeah, it's-
set in ages because so that's my shelf of Lego up there in the background.
And it's full. so.
It's full. I don't know what else to do.
Dan, you have you're joining us from your, is it still new? Do we get to call it new? Your new office? You have more shelves, more Legos.
Mhm.
I mean,
Here's what I'm gonna try. I'm gonna go remote. One second.
oh, let's see if this works. Live from Dan's house. It's Dan's
Oh,
stuff.
wow.
Yeah.
See, I could just carry my laptop around and show you Steven's Lego.
Mm.
Wow.
Now, Dan, I would, not to say anything
That's cute.
unkind about you, but it is a little tricky. I don't know if Dan can hear us. He may not.
I can. I could. You just couldn't hear
Okay.
me because I had. To
It is a
move
little
away from my-
challenging. I feel like those are there's a collection is curated, right? And a collection is usually displayed. And those feel like they're, I mean, the word I want to
Where are you
use
going
is
with this?
heaped.
I'm using every available inch of that shelf because that's
You are.
that's the Lego
That's true.
shelf.
Hmm.
If I suppose I could disassemble some stuff, make a little bit more room, and have more of a curated feel to it. But
Here,
I
let
was
me
going
show
for
you just-
volume.
Let me just turn this
I-
camera around and say, "Hey Google, Lego." Or no, never mind. Wrong title. Hey Google.
Home
Baseball
run.
lights on.
Oh. Didn't work.
Sorry, I couldn't reach TP link.
Why you make?
Home automation at its
Stupid
finest.
robots.
Yeah, what the hell? That's very rude of it. But anyway, that over there is Clutcher's Field. It is very, very large. You can
Yeah.
only
It
see the
is
corner of it.
a central part of your life.
It
Clutcher's
is, and it
Field.
has been. Here we go. Living room. Oh wow, it's really not showing up.
Hmm.
All right, well, never
We
mind.
have that same lamp somewhere.
I was gonna turn it on with my phone, but they're literally not
Oh,
showing up. So I wonder if Steven
okay.
unplugged it.
Time for a little tech support.
I ordered as part of my cleaning out of stuff, so a graphic novel shelf behind me full of graphic novels, and has also stuff in front of it because that's the kind of collector I am. There's a mixture of Star Wars action figures and Lego minifigs and various vehicles and whatnot. And as I was cleaning and dusting this weekend and individually cleaning each Lego minifigure, had several months worth of
Yep.
dust
We
and
just
stuff
don't-
on it.
We just don't do that.
Well, this was the first time I'd ever done it. I did go to Amazon and bought a display case because I'm like
Mhm.
putting these in a thing so that they
Yeah,
will.
we got doors for most of our shelves because
That's-
it just got to be too much.
Also, I feel like classy, so it keeps the dust out, and
Mhm.
you
It
know,
looks nice.
yeah. Well, that elevates your shelf to a display case, right? So
I
It,
used
it
to have,
does. We have lots of
when
them.
I was a kid, I had a collection of D&D miniatures.
Mhm.
Nice.
Which anyone will remember if they're
And
old
we're
enough.
made of lead, probably.
of
right?
lead.
Yeah.
A
Yep.
thing that I cannot believe, as a new parent, cannot believe my parents let me have. Anyways, but I had a really cool, which I do have upstairs. I have the case, quote unquote, I used to display that. And by simply mentioning this, I will in some way summon Glenn Fleischman. It's a type case, like one of those
Oh,
big
yeah.
wooden things that they kept movable type
mhm.
in. I don't even know where my parents came up with it. It might have belonged to my grandfather because he was a proofreader. But I had that hung on my wall.
And
I
those
had
are
all my
like
little figures in
perfectly
it.
sized for
They're
little.
pretty
cool.
good for that. I assume it would be similarly useful for minifigs were I to go in that
Mhm.
direction. So I do have it upstairs. I think it probably needs to be a little like touched up, a little refinished or something like that, but
Mhm.
it's pretty good. So maybe that's in my future, is trying to find a place to mount that. But it could use a piece of like plexiglass or something over it just to keep the dust out, because the dust is a real-
Every once in a while, Stephen will buy like a pack of compressed air cans
Mm.
and then just like go at Clutch's Field and like compressed air and a vacuum cleaner with cheesecloth over the end. So just like
Oh, cheesecloth,
Oh,
smart.
that's smart.
Because I will tell you, I
Smart
vacuumed
idea.
out some minifigs and then had to go into the vacuum to fish out the minifigs. Nothing
Mhm.
makes you feel more like a competent adult
No.
opening up the canister on a vacuum cleaner, fishing out, some Marvel superhero that has gotten mixed up. In
Ant-Man,
Yeah.
no.
So.
Cheesecloth is the secret. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. It works,
It's also good for cheese.
I-
I hear.
I guess. I don't think I've ever made cheese with cheesecloth. I just use it to strain things.
I was gonna say they were gonna rename it like Lego cloth or something.
I think I've used it most for chicken stock for like
Yes,
draining.
I was gonna say
Sure.
that's
Yeah.
my main use of it.
Yep.
Yeah, Dan, that's the like when Apple here's an Apple branded sock for your iPod. You can't just put any sock on it.
I mean, you could, but why would you put your iPod in just a random sock that you
Why
have?
would
That
you?
seems weird.
Yeah.
Possibly unsanitary. I hope you wash the sock at least.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
important.
And built
Yeah, I did
computers.
very little at the convention this weekend. This was my most low key galley, I think, ever. Well, I guess maybe last year was technically more low key because we didn't do anything. But this year, my podcast Verity, we didn't do it last year because we didn't have enough of us. But this year, there were 5 of us, so we did our In Defense of live show. So on the podcast, occasionally Deb will crowdsource statements to defend. Usually they're
Mhm.
unpopular statements about Doctor Who, and you have to speak only positively for 60 seconds, and that's way harder than it sounds. And at the convention, it's all like audience participation. So we get the audience to suggest things, and we also then get the audience to come up and play. So all I have to do for In Defense of is sit there with my phone to use as a timer, and then Deb has, an inconceivable style bell, and ding the bell after 60 seconds is up and tell the person that they can stop. And it is like a crowd favorite panel because it is
Wow.
always
Outsourced.
hilarious. Yeah, it's really funny because there are some very smart people who come to Galley and
Mhm.
smart and funny people. Like one year, it was the
It sounds
greatest
like that
moment.
some of the Doctor Who fans might be nerds.
A little bit.
Just-
The greatest moment of all was when 2 people, because it's 2 people come up and they both have to defend the same thing for 60
Mhm.
seconds, and then the rest of the crowd by applause decides who won. So it was 2 very smart and entertaining people. So one person went and did a great job and was hilarious, and then the other person went, and I can't remember what her argument was or even what she was talking about, but it was very funny, and she was clearly like one-upping the other person. And then she broke into song and started singing Defying Gravity from Wicked, and the guy who had gone first then stood up and started harmonizing with her, and then the crowd just lost it, and people were singing in the audience, and people were standing up and cheering, and it was just like I felt like, am I in a scene from a movie? It's because it was completely unreal, and I was like, this doesn't happen in real life, but it did. So that was like the perfect moment of In Defense of, and I don't think it'll ever be that great again, but there were some close moments this year with like people just getting huge laughs.
I had to do that on back in the old days when we used to have the Macworld Pundit Showdown run by our pal Philip Michaels. And the end of that was always a defend the indefensible round where Phil would give each of us a topic, and we'd have to speak for, I think, a fairly small amount of time, maybe 30 seconds on whatever this thing. And it was always something like, I think Apple's products are too expensive. I think it's an overpriced piece
bold.
of crap,
Yeah.
It was always very entertaining though.
Yep. So that was my only real responsibility. So the rest of the time I just floated around and watched my friends on the big stage interviewing famous people. So
Yeah.
it's like, that's fun.
Other than panels, I did one autograph session to which I signed one book.
Oh.
Hey, that
But I
that
sold
counts.
that book to a
Oh,
person.
nice.
Also, it was a fellow client of my agent who I knew. So, you know,
Still counts.
it counts.
Yep.
Those checks still cash, Dan. You know.
I mean,
I don't
was-
know if
it
I
was
signed any
cash.
autographs this year. I think maybe one. I can't remember. The whole weekend is a blur, but usually there's at least one. Mhm. Somebody will just randomly catch me in the hallway. And I took a selfie with incomparable listener Seb. That was nice.
Oh,
Oh, nice.
Yep.
I did have somebody recognize me the other week at a professional related webinar, which was very weird. They're like, "Oh, I love your Star Wars podcast," and I was like, "Ah, where are we?"
The context switches are weird
Yeah,
sometimes.
I'm not good at that.
Mhm.
You know.
I did see someone. Yeah, I did see someone at BossCon wearing a shirt for a Relay FM podcast.
Oh, nice.
So that was
Cool.
supposedly not my podcast. So
Oh.
I didn't go talk to them. I would have if it had been my podcast, but it was
Mhm.
another podcast.
That's Dan. Other podcasts are allowed to exist. How often do we have to
Mm.
talk about this?
I was wearing on the Wednesday when I arrived, I was wearing my Queen Amina shirt and the one person who noticed it and came up to me was Warren, who is from the Expanse podcast on the Incomparable Network and also a good friend of mine. But he's like, "Hey, is that from Dan's books?" I'm like, "Yeah, it is." Yep.
That's cool. That's
So
cool.
so
Wow.
it did get recognized.
Well, thanks, Warren. I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't wear my own shirts to conventions. I've decided against that.
That's
It
and
seems
that's
like wearing,
fair.
it's wearing your own band shirt, right? Like it's weird.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah.
You should wear
I
a
think
shirt
I
instead that says "I'm Dan Moore, author of." You
Oh,
know,
now
and then-
you've seen my shirts then.
yeah.
there you
Well, maybe
go.
they have a list on the back, you know, like tour dates.
I do
so-
have a pin that is a Commonwealth insignia pin, so that I wear that in my lapel usually.
Okay, slightly more.
Subtle.
I
subtle.
also wore my Commonwealth insignia pen on Sunday. So yeah.
Thank you for
Man,
representing.
I
Yeah,
should wear more
I ha-
insignia pins. Those are classy.
I have I have my favorite dress I have in 4 colors. So I was like, that's my uniform for this convention. I am going to just wear that dress in 4 different colors for every day of the con and the day before. And 3 of them have these cute little buttons, like 3 buttons, and it's kind of like a off kilter neckline. It's very cute. And the one of them doesn't. So I was like, oh, I can gussy this up by adding 3 of my little pins that are normally on my bag. So I was like looking at my bag and like, oh, I'm gonna pick this one and that one and this one. You know, I had to make it right so that they were
Sure,
like
it's
all
gotta
roughly
look-
the same,
It's gotta look
roughly
right.
the
yeah.
same size. They have to go. So the Commonwealth one, the Incomparable Robot,
Mhm.
and the Providence Falconers insignia or logo pin from Check Please, the webcomic.
Yes. I was like, is that a real hockey team? Wait, no, I know that that's a
Nope.
fictional hockey team from a webcomic that I've read.
Yep.
At first, I was like, is Erica just a fan of falconry? Nope.
I mean, Falcons are pretty cool,
They're
but
cool. I don't
I
know.
wouldn't
that
consider,
wear
I wouldn't
myself.
call myself a fan. Just to,
Yeah.
you know.
I wouldn't call myself a falconer, but
Yeah.
falcon
No.
adjacent.
I'm not saying I don't enjoy sending birds to murder small prey, but you know.
I
I'm
don't
busy.
not enjoy it. And let me tell you.
And I went to bed pretty early every night, and I think that was the right call.
It's just, you know, aging, everything just gets easier and easier the older you get.
Yep.
Yeah.
I appreciate a comment from listener Ray, who points out, fun fact, type trays can have lead residue in them. The
Oh,
metal used for type is a lead/tin amalgam, which makes them perfect for old school D&D minis. And a
Yeah.
good reason not to put my Lego minifigs in there without thoroughly cleaning it. So thank you for that.
yeah.
Mhm.
Don't let your kid lick your display case, I guess.
Or
Right.
anything stored within.
I don't know what your plans were, Dan.
We're at a stage where it gets harder to prevent the kid from licking
Licking thing, because that is part of his main
general.
main vector for exploring the world is
Yeah.
licking.
Yep.
Dan, there's also you're an actual parent and have looked into this. I might ask, like, what is the relative amount of lead in that, say, compared to the amount of lead in the soil in Somerville?
Oh, it's
So-
high in the soil.
Yeah, so it's like,
high.
you know, you spend all day scrubbing your display cases, and it's like, okay, yeah, but what about
That
like,
kid ate 2 tons of dirt.
yep. So
Yep.
Yum.
it's okay.
Dirt.
Back in the old days, kids would drink a gallon of leaded gasoline.
My
before
wife
breakfast.
famously tells a story about how this place that they used to oh God, what was the name of it? It's got a ridiculous name. It's a beach near where she grew up. And I feel like it's actually called like Lead something beach. Like
Great.
Lead Mills Beach, I think. And she's like, yeah, later on they shut it down because, lead. That seems
That's
bad.
amazing.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah. What do you
Okay,
think
so
they'll look back on our time and be like, oh my God, how did they?
Lego minifigs.
Oh no.
Who knew?
No,
Those things.
I need those. They're the only thing I have going for me.
I've eaten 27 smartphones, and it just turns out that's really bad.
Yeah, you really.
That's
really
like an
only-
expensive
Yeah.
snack habit.
You're really only
It's
supposed to
bad
eat
on
the
the
silica,
digestion,
silica
too, let me
packets.
tell you.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, Tony.
Yeah,
Those
like my
clearly say
doctor
do
told
not
me-
eat.
My doctor told me to eat more salt, but nobody's ever told me to eat more silicon.
Mm.
That's true, but maybe we just haven't discovered it yet. Maybe we're onto
Mm.
something.
You should. I'm sure you are. Yeah. Oh, I just remembered one of the many other cool things at Galley is my friend Riley Silverman, a delightful internet personality, gave me one of the cantrip candles, which we talked about it in the lobby, like, I don't know, for a few minutes last year, and she remembered and bought me one and brought it this year.
That's pretty good.
So it is the Adventurers Emporium, and it's got like this really cool
That
picture
is- what is
on
the
the top.
Emporium? I think that's a
Oh, yeah.
place in an adventure.
It sounds like a generic fantasy.
Maybe
store.
okay. I'm like, is that
I
a
don't
place that
know, but
I've been
it's,
to or sent people to?
So the scent it says notes of polished leather, tobacco and clove, and
Mhm.
crushed
Oh.
amber. So, I mean, I know you can't smell it, but it's a very nice candle.
Does it smell like a specific cantrip?
I don't think so.
Mage
I think
hand?
cantrip candles is just the
just-
name of the
They went for something alliterative. Within
I
the
just
Mhm.
title,
like the
so-
idea
Yeah.
of scents after specific cantrips because, like,
that is that.
the mage hand. I feel like mage hand actually might be a like a cologne. Mage hand by Calvin Klein.
Or it just
or-
smells like hand lotion.
Yeah, I mean, you know what, you sell it, but I feel like you just slap a D&D-ish label on it, you can sell it for a lot
Mhm.
more.
That's true. But yeah, so they have a bunch of different scents, and I haven't looked to see what the other ones are. But Riley said she got me the one that just seemed like the most like D&D of all of them. So that's why Adventurers Emporium. They have like cute artwork and stuff. And I like, do I wait until I play next? Well, I don't have anything on the schedule. Besides, like, I was thinking, do I wait until I play next in person, which we don't have scheduled yet, but before I burn it. But I'm like, I don't think I want to wait that long. I think I'm just gonna burn it before then because it smells really good.
Yeah, I mean, don't hoard your candles, right? I mean, like, they're meant to be used.
Yes. Otherwise they just sit around
It's true.
and sometimes melt a little bit. Although not in Edmonton. In Wisconsin, sometimes if you let a candle sit around too long, in the summertime, it would just start to sort of like, "Ooh," if it wasn't in a container. That does not happen here.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, one of the first summers I was here, I don't think it hit 80 once, like at all.
You know, part of me is like, oh, that sounds lovely.
Yeah,
and it's like,
but
but
it's
it
the
comes
rest
at a
of it,
price.
Tony.
It comes at a
Yeah.
price, does it not?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Oh my God. We left LA and it was, see, I know these in Celsius, I don't know in Fahrenheit, but it was probably like 18 or 19 degrees Celsius when we left LA, and we got here and today it feels like minus 26.
no,
No,
that's too much minus.
right
Yeah.
out.
I looked that up. I think that's minus 15 Fahrenheit. I think that's what that is. I looked it up earlier today.
That's still too much.
Not fun. Yeah, so I
Don't
gave
need it.
Steven a ride to work so he didn't have to walk the 16 blocks to the rink like he usually does. And I will be picking him up later.
That's
Because
very-
no.
Very considerate.
Mhm. I mean, he could. He's got the gear for it, but it's a pain. He's got like snow goggles. He enjoys it kind of because he feels like he's playing spaceman because he's just like literally no inch of his skin is touching the air.
It's a coping strategy. And Steven is Steven from Edmonton?
Yeah, well, he was born in a city that's like an hour south of here, but
Okay.
he's from this area. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is not like a thing that he's had to,
Mm-mm.
adjust to in the same way. I'm building one
Nope.
of flower boxes.
That's so cute.
It's
Yeah,
adorable.
They're adorable.
I'm
Mhm.
glad that the castle went in for decoration. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like There's a lot of open
Mm.
space there, basically.
I am finishing. This is the end of bag 10. Get nervous about how many extra little pieces are left. I always like, what did I miss?
I always try. So I don't know you like you. I feel like I always end up with them because they do. I know
They do,
specifically put
yes,
in
They do.
Yeah.
extra pieces, and
But
I feel like I always try to build them into something. When I'm done with, I'll build all the extra pieces into a little mini weird.
I do
bizarre
not do
thing.
that, Dan. What I have is a Ziploc bag full of years worth of them that when I
Sounds
die can be
delicious.
buried with me.
We have a tackle box kind of thing that has them sort of sorted out. Yeah, usually they will, if for the really little ones, they will usually give you one extra of each of the super small ones, and occasionally an extra one of something bigger, but not usually. Usually if you have something like a bigger piece that's like, 3 or more, pips on it, Stephen is always like, what did I miss?
Yeah.
And then we will
Yeah.
go back to find it. I've learned a lot in the time that I have been here, watching Stephen build many hours of Lego.
You make it sound a little bit like he locked you in.
Yeah. Just a little.
He lets me help at Christmas.
Just at Christmas.
The rest of the year, you live in a cupboard under the stairs. What?
No, I have to sit over there, and I am useful because he's colorblind, so we'll occasionally be able to be like, which one of these is pink and which one of these is green, and then I can help. So
Or make a daring creative choice.
it's that one. Are you sure? Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm. I would never do that. We never joke about Lego in this house. Like, yes, we do actually all the time.
Oh, okay. Okay, I am reaching the phase where this is going to connect onto another my previously built part of the castle that I'm going to try to lift up here without breaking everything.
Ah. So exciting.
Yeah. I dropped a minifig on the floor. Find it. Dan, I did in my cleaning this weekend, I pulled out several pieces of furniture that had probably not been touched in quite a while. And it was like behind every piece of furniture, there was a die that I had at some point lost.
I believe that is the saying.
Oh,
Behind
yeah.
every piece of
Behind
furniture
every furniture,
is a die. It
was
was
like,
showing
I don't even
showing a
remember
critical
owning-
hit.
I don't even remember owning this set.
The die is coming from inside the house.
Are you sure they were all yours, or did you ever have people over to play that got mad enough that they threw their dice?
I don't think we've ever played in-person D&D in this apartment. It's very
Ghost
small.
die.
Dan's apartment used to be the destination for in-person D&D.
I
We have
did
not played
recover some
in-person
dice
D&D
there.
in a long time.
I definitely recovered dice there that did not belong to me.
Yeah.
Could
And this
not
was
tell you
also
whose they were.
specifically like in the corner where my computer is, so it was
Mhm.
most likely to be total party kill or other zoomed
Gotcha.
D&D related things. So
Yeah, it's nice to have a house that's designed for
sounds
people
great,
to
Dan.
socialize, come over and socialize and play games and D&D together. A thing that we have never done.
well, you can someday.
Thanks, pandemic.
Yeah.
You're the
We can't do
best.
that. We can't do that because this
the
over
giant
there.
baseball. Yeah, you can play
Yeah,
baseball.
that. Yep.
Lego
It's
baseball.
just like, we can't have friends because of the baseball.
We have an old IKEA table that is disassembled, that is under the other couch that Stephen will pull out and build and set in like the one space that barely fits, so that we can play D&D around it or other board games when we want to have friends over. But usually it's easier to just go over to Annette's house because she has an actual like dining area, and also 4 cats that Stephen can play with when he
Yeah.
gets bored with the grown-up conversation.
Or the grown-up Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hmm.
Well, I'm pretty happy with what I've built here tonight.
It looks
This-
great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I did
nice.
not. I knew this was going to attach. I didn't know it was going to like fold together in a lovely, and it's got like a nice little snap where it clicks in together. And so
Oh,
this
that's
is
nice.
part of the.
Mhm.
Wow, it's
part of-
very
I guess it probably goes that way.
cohesive. It's nice.
Yeah, I like the smooth edges they put on the top of all the battlements.
Mhm.
You know,
Well, you
to
want
hide
to you don't want to have just like random studs popping off
No,
the battlements.
you know,
That's
I don't know.
unergonomic. Whoa.
Yeah.
Legos.
I love it.
Cool.
I'm just clicking all the various little minifigs and whatnot I've acquired at this point to this to try and make it into a thing that will be easier to manage as the thing that sits on my shelves.
Yeah, it's big.
Let's see if I can pick this up without dropping it.
Well, if you drop it, you got a lot more content.
Yeah.
Put it back together again.
Thanks, Dan. Welcome
See,
to
that's the
Tony
bright side.
Reassembles Legos.
It's an infinitely generating content.
Yeah.
It's great.
Mhm.
So, let me just adjust things here as I move because I think I am done with Legos for the evening. Okay. Ooh, sorry about that. The ergonomics of this are a little tricky, but I got it. So, anyway,
Thanks.
yeah, Legos. I recommend the concept of Legos.
Hot take.
Hot take.
Bold
Mhm.
choice.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, we've been chatting and streaming for about an hour, so I think this might be a good place to wrap things up unless anyone has any other exciting things to announce.
Closing statements.
Closing statements. Dan, I did pre-order that D&D thing, the next adventure, Keys of the Golden Vault, which I'll be reading as soon as it comes in. So I will I'll share thoughts on that with people at some point. We have the confirmed entire Dog and Pony roster scheduled to return on March 7th, which is not too far away. So they'll continue their adventures through Ravenloft, sneaking around. They met a weird guy in the basement the last time we played. So got that to look forward to.
Yep.
I feel like I'm not good at doing this, but I'll do this. I'll mention if you Tony Sindelar, that's me. I'm currently unemployed. If you feel like giving me a few dollars to toward podcast or Lego building things or whatever, you can go to GiveTonyMoney.fun, a website created by Micah.
So
and
smart. I love it.
Yeah, Micah, like Tony, but smarter. You know. And I even set up, I think I have a long way to go before I need any more Lego sets, but I did set up an Amazon wish list with, here are Lego sets you can demand I stream on the internet for the future. So,
Good thinking.
yeah.
Do not tell Steven that you have done that. I don't want to
think
give
the
him
other
any
alternative
ideas.
is Lego sets that you will like if people don't give you money that you break Legos.
Oh,
Oh,
Please-
suddenly
please
it's a
don't do
hostage
that.
situation.
yeah, because probably Steven would pay that ransom and
Where's the money going at this point? It's just like, just spinning in
True.
a circle.
Yeah, it's like you put all your money in a washing machine.
That's how you launder money.
That is not how you want it. So, but yeah, cool. All right. Well, I might be back next week with more Legos. We'll be back in a couple weeks, definitely with Total Party Kill. We might do some D&D trivia at some point, which it turns out I'm really, really bad at. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
too.
So
I am slightly less bad.
that's what we say
Pretty good
about you,
at it.
Dan. So cool. Well, thank you for joining us, whether you listened or watched for this very low key chatting on a Tuesday evening or wherever it is when you're watching and listening. Goodbye, nerds.
Bye, Mom.
Bye, buddy.